Imagine walking into a police station. You see the official government crest on the wall. Officers in crisp, tactical uniforms sit at desks, filling out paperwork, radios buzzing in the background. A high-ranking detective sits across from you, showing you a warrant with your name on it. He looks you dead in the eye and tells you that your life savings have been linked to an international money laundering cartel. To save yourself, you must transfer your funds to a secure government holding account immediately. Terrified, you comply. You watch the officer nod, confirm the transfer, and salute you. You log off the video call, breathing a sigh of relief. But there is a terrifying catch. The police station you just saw wasn't real. The uniforms were fake. The badges were counterfeit. The entire building was a highly detailed, theatrical stage built inside a heavily armed, multi-million-dollar cyber fortress hidden deep in the mountains of Eswatini, a tiny landlocked nation in southern Africa. You didn't just get scammed. You just walked into one of the most sophisticated, audacious psychological operations in criminal history. A global syndicate so powerful, so elusive, that it took an unprecedented alliance of 97 countries to finally tear it down. This is the story of Operation First Light, the massive global dragnet that exposed the multi-million-dollar fake police stations, the shadow banks, and the digital fortresses hiding in plain sight. For years, intelligence agencies across Europe, Asia, and the Americas noticed a disturbing pattern. It began with an unprecedented spike in highly complex social engineering scams. These weren't your typical, poorly written phishing emails or low-effort robocalls. These were high-value, targeted attacks aimed at high-net-worth individuals, corporate executives, and elderly citizens with significant life savings. The tactics were frighteningly effective. Victims would receive an urgent alert, supposedly from federal police, Interpol, or national judicial authorities. When the victims expressed doubt, the callers would smoothly escalate the situation, inviting them to a secure live video conference to verify their credentials. When the camera turned on, the illusion was flawless. The background looked exactly like a high-security police precinct. The personnel moved with military precision. The psychological pressure was intense. Scammers used elaborate scripts designed to trigger absolute panic. They weaponized the victim's fear of authority, isolating them from family and legal counsel, demanding total secrecy. Under this immense stress, victims watched their life savings vanish into a digital abyss. Interpol's financial crime units realized they weren't dealing with isolated cells of internet fraudsters. The sheer scale, the technological infrastructure, and the Hollywood-level production value pointed to something far more dangerous: a highly organized, corporate-style criminal empire. But tracking them down seemed impossible. Every time a digital trail was discovered, it vanished. IP addresses bounced seamlessly across encrypted servers in Europe. The stolen funds disappeared into a complex web of digital currencies, shadow banking networks, and underground money mules stretching from Thailand to Peru. The masterminds were ghosts, operating out of jurisdictions that standard law enforcement couldn't easily reach. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. As the global stolen asset total ticked past $290 million, Interpol decided to pull the trigger on an unprecedented counteroffensive. Codename Operation First Light. The strategy was massive in its scale. Instead of chasing individual scammers or blocking isolated bank accounts, Interpol coordinated a synchronized, multinational intelligence-sharing dragnet. 97 countries pooled their cyber forensic capabilities, wiretaps, and financial intelligence units into a single unified strike command. Cyber investigators began working backward from the money trail. They realized the syndicates relied hemispheric dependencies on a specialized financial infrastructure known as phishing-as-a-service and decentralized crypto mixers. By deploying advanced artificial intelligence tracking tools and executing cross-border data warrants, investigators began to notice faint anomalies. The digital footprints, despite being routed through elite proxy networks, kept pinging back to unexpected geographic hubs. While the money laundered through major Asian financial sectors, the actual operational command centers, the voice engines and the physical video call stages, were being run out of hidden compounds in regions with weak regulatory oversight. One specific cluster of data led investigators right to the doorstep of a heavily fortified compound in Eswatini. Intelligence teams on the ground deployed covert surveillance, tracking high-end satellite dishes, massive power draws, and unusual security details protecting seemingly abandoned commercial properties. The trap was set. The global law enforcement apparatus was aligned, waiting for the perfect moment to strike all nodes simultaneously. The scale of the digital architecture uncovered by intelligence agencies was unlike anything they had encountered in standard cyber investigation history. The compound in Eswatini was not just a hiding place for a few servers and laptops. It was operating as a fully autonomous criminal tech campus. Analysts working deep within the Interpol infrastructure began mapping out the physical security perimeters of the site long before any tactical boots hit the ground. They discovered that the perimeter walls were reinforced with industrial-grade concrete, topped with high-voltage electric fencing, and monitored by a network of thermal imaging cameras that mapped out the entire valley. The syndicates operating inside had deliberately chosen this region because it sat in a regulatory blind spot, nestled between larger global financial networks but lacking the intensive digital oversight found in Western nations. This allowed them to construct a massive satellite array capable of pulling high-speed bandwidth directly from international commercial satellites, entirely bypassing the local state-owned telecommunications grid. By doing this, they effectively rendered themselves invisible to traditional regional wiretaps and internet service provider monitoring. Inside this digital fortress, the level of organizational structure mimicked that of a Fortune 500 tech company. Investigators later revealed that the operation was divided into strict, compartmentalized corporate departments. There was a human resources division responsible for recruiting international workers, often under the guise of legitimate customer service or tech support contracts. Many of these low-level operators were brought in from foreign nations, their passports confiscated upon arrival, trapping them inside the compound under armed guard and forcing them to run scam scripts for 14 hours a day. Above them were the system administrators, elite network engineers who maintained the massive server racks running specialized software designed to spoof caller identification profiles globally. This software allowed a scammer sitting in a remote African valley to appear on a target's mobile phone screen as a local number originating from the municipal police department of a major metropolitan city in the United States, Europe, or Asia. The financial heart of the compound was even more complex. A dedicated accounting cell worked around the clock, operating a proprietary dashboard that tracked millions of dollars in incoming fraudulent transfers in real time. The moment a victim complied with the psychological demands of the fake police officers and initiated a wire transfer, the accounting cell shifted into high gear. The capital did not simply sit in a single bank account where it could be frozen by a court order. Instead, the syndicate deployed an automated transaction routing system that splintered the stolen funds into hundreds of microtransactions. These fractions of capital were instantly blasted across a decentralized network of regional shell companies, digital wallet networks, and underground peer-to-peer exchanges. A single $50,000 theft would be broken down into payments for phantom consulting services in Southeast Asia, equipment leases in South America, and digital asset purchases on unverified European exchanges, all within 90 seconds of the victim hitting the send button. This hyper-automated velocity made manual asset recovery completely impossible for traditional banking institutions. Interpol knew that to break this cycle, they could not rely on slow-moving international legal requests. They had to intercept the network at its absolute core. Intelligence teams began monitoring the primary physical supply chains feeding the compound, tracking the delivery of high-end theatrical gear, uniform shipments, and specialized server hardware. They realized that the syndicate was preparing to expand its operation, building out even more replica police stages to target a wider array of global jurisdictions. The clock was ticking, and if law enforcement did not move quickly, the network would become too deeply decentralized to ever fully dismantle. The tactical blueprint for the ultimate takedown was finalized at Interpol's Global Command Center, and the execution phase was launched with absolute synchronized precision. The operational phase, codenamed Operation First Light, saw specialized task forces from 97 countries strike concurrently. When the heavily armed tactical units breached the concrete outer defenses of the fortress compound in Eswatini, the scene inside completely validated months of intelligence gathering. 82 suspects were arrested immediately on site, caught red-handed at their custom-built workstations. The tactical team stepped past heavy soundproofing to find the fully constructed, highly realistic replica of the Brazilian Federal Police Station. Counterfeit uniforms were hung neatly on racks, official agency banners were draped across professional studio lighting arrays, and falsified government documentation was spread across desks where operators had been live streaming moments earlier. The deceptive illusion was entirely shattered as foreign nationals, who had been held captive under forced contracts to execute these high-stakes social engineering plays, were secured and processed by international rescue units. Simultaneously, the hammer fell across connected cells globally. In Thailand, cyber investigators executing simultaneous search warrants dismantled an elite money laundering ring operating directly in support of the syndicates. They arrested a critical 20-year-old target whose single digital wallet infrastructure had processed over $122 million in under 10 months. In Singapore and Oman, financial intelligence teams utilized Interpol's cutting-edge global rapid intervention of payments system, a hyper-fast stop payment mechanism, to intercept and completely freeze a single $6.6 million fraudulent business transfer right before it could vanish into the decentralized dark web mixing network. The ultimate metrics of this global dragnet were staggering. By the time the massive multi-month operation concluded, international law enforcement had successfully identified over 14,000 victims and analyzed more than 152,000 individual fraud cases. Over 31,000 suspicious bank accounts and anonymous digital wallets were completely frozen, and nearly 6,000 arrests were executed globally. A massive total of $293 million in illicit assets and physical currencies was successfully seized from the hands of organized syndicates. Yet, as the dust settled on this historic international crackdown, cyber intelligence analysts realized this victory was merely a temporary dam against an ever-evolving tide. The raid on the Eswatini compound exposed a profound paradigm shift in modern organized crime. Syndicates are no longer relying on standard digital exploits or basic phishing links. They are actively building physical movie sets, hiring professional tech staff, weaponizing human psychology, and operating massive decentralized networks that mimic legitimate corporate enterprises. Operation First Light proved that a unified global response can successfully breach these digital fortresses and track down the masterminds, but the blueprints for these highly automated deception networks remain open source in the digital underworld. Even as these specific server racks cool down, new hidden compounds are silently being built in alternative regulatory blind spots across the globe, ensuring that the high-stakes game of shadow intelligence and digital warfare will continue completely unchecked.